Welcome to today's webinar, Dots in Motion, Empowering Change. I'm Lauren Fletcher, Executive Editor of Fleet, Trucking, and Transportation at Bobit, and I'll be your moderator for today's session. Today, we're diving into a sea of dots, a metaphor for the countless connections, challenges, and opportunities that define our bustling industry. So let's start by imagining each dot as a vehicle on a vast network of roads, each on its own path, yet part of our bigger picture. Our mission today is to not only navigate this complex map together, but empower and promote growth and change while we're at it. So we've all been there. The new person on day one, lost in a sea of acronyms, worried that we don't really understand what everyone thinks we do, concerned that everyone's seeing through us like torn tissue paper, realizing that the commercial vehicle business and industry is way more than just one job, way more than just one sector. But the good part is that we're not alone. So today we're going to explore the vital connections that our industry thrives on, pinpoint the changes that are needed to help fuel that collective engine, and harness our power to steer toward a brighter and more efficient future together. So whether you're here to find pathways through the maze, to spotlight new routes on that map, or connect more dots, we are in the right place. We will be answering questions at the end of our session, so please feel free to submit your questions through the chat portal, and we'll make sure to get to them at the end if we have time. Our presenters today are Nicole Combs, Director of Sales, Work Truck Finance at Mitsubishi HC Capital, a commercial finance company. Candy McCollum, Manager, Business Development at Convoy.com, a commercial vehicle marketplace. And Dania Rich-Spencer, VP Automotive and Mobility at Escalent, a data analytics and advisory firm. But I'm going to go ahead and let these ladies speak for themselves and hand it over to them for a quick introduction. Nicole, why don't we start with you? Thanks. And Candy?
Thanks, Lauren. It is a pleasure to be here and part of this panel today. I'm super passionate about driving change and sparking innovation in our industry. I've been in this space for, like Nicole said, most of my career, almost 20 years in the commercial automotive space. And I am just excited to be here.
And Dania.
Thanks, Lauren. Well, hello, everybody. I'm Dania Rich-Spencer, and I'm with Escalent, as Lauren mentioned, and I am a strategic advisor for our Fleet Advisory Hub. And our Fleet Advisory Hub is a group of dedicated fleet decision makers. We have over 10,000 representatives from 10,000 companies, and they represent over 1 million vehicles. And we engage with these folks on a regular basis, usually a couple of times a month on a variety of topics with an emphasis on technology and new trends. We ask these folks to complete surveys for us, and we invite them to different qualitative activities. So it is a way to understand their pain points and their challenges and their opinions as our commercial vehicle industry continues to change. When I learned about today's theme, Connecting Dots, I was really excited because that is exactly what we do with our Fleet Advisory Hub members. This is about following them over a period of time and connecting their attitudes and their perceptions and their challenges to get information for Escalent's end clients, which are the OEMs and service providers, on how they can make better products and services for their customers. So really excited to be here.
So we're going to shift gears and we're going to get the conversation rolling and transform these insights into actions. As one of the main images for the Spring CVBSummit illustrated, there are a lot of dots connected to the commercial vehicle industry. And each day, every one of you connects those dots in just about every single definition of that phrase. However, in preparing for our panel today, one thing that really stood out was just how confusing and difficult understanding, let alone connecting those dots can be in the automotive space, especially as we all wear so many hats, continue to add more to our days, and find connecting our own dots difficult, let alone the entire vehicle business space. So, panelists, could you share your insights or experiences in understanding and successfully connecting the dots in your professional journey? Candy, let's start with you on this one.
All right, thanks, Lauren.
Well, I think there's a lot to unpack here for me.
right? Like I said before, I've spent a lot of years in the commercial vehicle atmosphere, and most of them has been filled with change and learning experiences. Maybe start with there's a lot of dots, right? And most of those dots are in emotion, right? Constantly. And I think for the change and the empowering change for me and coming into this session with you guys is it's sometimes those dots are in our industry, right? And sometimes those are internally within our own organizations and our own businesses as we're having to make adjustments to the market. But I believe the connection for me along my journey has required a comprehensive understanding of technology, right? Regulation, especially maybe now, trends, customer demands, as well as appreciation for those that are in that circle. It's more of a 360 look on things. And I started in the commercial sector in the advertising and marketing side of things, right? So the desire to match people with products that serve them and help them has always been a driving force behind my approach. But from the advertising perspective in the beginning, there was significant shifts, right? I think we are probably going to be relate to these from the print to the digital media, right? And then it was mobile. There was all the talk about mobile. And then it was the rise of smartphones. And, that changed how we all interacted with technology, and arguably probably as much as the invention of the automobile itself, right? And going through that early was kind of underscored for me, hey, the adaptability to change, right? And so just working in the commercial space, going to events, being there, working with dealers, right? For years and years, I felt like I had a good grip on the commercial space. I thought I understood it. I understood, like you said, the foreign language, or at least knew what they were talking about. But it wasn't until my experience within a dealership, working in the dealership, that I truly, it just reshaped my understanding of the commercial vehicle industry in general. It's the complexity, the meticulous planning that's behind every vehicle journey that you mentioned earlier, Lauren, at the beginning, right? It's from the dealer lot to the customer. It's just so dynamic, and it just highlights all those interconnected efforts required to make that a seamless operation. Because at the end of the day, it's the dealership that's the front line in a lot of cases to the commercial. So I just think that experience allowed me to put these little bitty dots or big dots along the way from my previous years, and being in the space and working it from that angle to see it come together was, I don't know, I just think it helped me to be where I am today, and even identify opportunities or connections, or even some of the things that I'm sure that we're going to talk about here, understand those things better.
I think when you said those dots are moving targets, that was so eye-opening, because you're right. They aren't just sitting there on the map. They're moving all around. And we have gone, like you said, through this incredible generational shift, and we now have those smartphones. And I think there was a panel I was on that, they're referencing vehicles as smartphones on wheels now. So we have definitely grown and changed, and there's constantly more to learn. AI being something that's kind of joined in here as well. So fantastic insights into the challenges that we've got here. Nicole, what about you? Okay, unfortunately, it looks like we might be having a small issue with Nicole's audio. Super sorry, everybody. We will work on that right now. I'm going to go ahead and skip. We'll move on to Dania for this one, and we'll get right back to Nicole. Dania, what about you?
Oh, yeah, thanks, Lauren. So there are a lot of dots, and I love the visual for the summit this time around. And there always has been a lot of dots because our ecosystem is broad and it's deep. But what's particularly challenging today versus, maybe even 10 years ago is the speed of change and evolution that some of these dots or some of these areas in the ecosystem are experiencing. Lauren, you touched upon it. We hear the term software-defined vehicle, right? So our vehicles are like computers on wheels. They're going to generate, they do generate an enormous amount of data, right? And for Escalent, as a data company, that's relevant to us. And what's relevant to our clients is voice of customer. And so the voice of customer is really applicable and relevant to each one of those dots. And just as Candy had mentioned, there's been, this transition from paper to pencil to digital, to how we reach customers. I mean, I've been doing this a long time, and we would, call everybody. We would get a name list, and we would use the white pages, and we would call people on the telephone. Well, everything is done digitally. And we probably, in some surveys, there's upwards of 70% of our survey respondents completing surveys on their little mobile phone. So technology has challenged companies like mine that are engaging with consumers and business decision makers on how to reach them and how to make this information actionable, because things, nothing stays the same. So we were challenged to identify better ways of reaching people and different methodologies that lead to better, insightful, and actionable information for our clients. And about 10 years ago, maybe 15 years ago now, we embarked on this research community methodology, which is representative of our Fleet Advisory Hub. And this allows us to really follow people through their decision-making process. As I said, we're interested in people's attitudes and behaviors and motivating factors and their challenges when it comes to product development and new services, and just changing attitudes, being influenced by the technology around us. Quickly, just an example, we recently conducted a telematics path to purchase study in our Fleet Advisory Hub. And we were able to follow decision makers through that path of what triggers the purchase of a telematics solution, where are they gathering information, who are they talking to, where are they shopping. We were able to understand that entire purchase process, which the methodology of having this dedicated group of decision makers allows us to build this relationship and allows us to iterate. So it's a tremendous, I'm using the term methodology, but it's just another way to connect with people on a more personal level in which they're more comfortable sharing that information. So the dots there are a lot of dots, and we go broad and we go deep, but at the end of the day, some things just don't change, and we need to understand that interconnectivity throughout the entire ecosystem, and we're tapping into that through our advisory hub.
A few notes as you were talking, there was a few things that I thought were so valid, which was one, the speed that things are changing, while at the same time, some things aren't changing at all.
Right.
Some things change so quickly, especially with technology, while at the same time, powertrains and things that are vehicle related are definitely taking time and research. It's not like a, fleet can just change out all of their vehicles overnight. So it definitely has that challenge to try to get through. And then again, changing attitudes. You mentioned telematics. What are some of the changing attitudes you're kind of seeing related to that?
Well, it's kind of this yin yang, right? Telematics solution is able to offer so much benefit to the fleet, right? Think about, again, it goes back to connected services and that vehicle being connected. it offers the promise to increase efficiency, to increase productivity, to protect the asset. You have the ability in real time to understand where that vehicle is. You have the ability to understand driver behavior. You have the ability to connect that to even back or front end or back end office procedures. But at the same time, that's an additional cost. Now, some fleets will be forced to adopt it just for regulations. When you think about the adoption of electrification and electric vehicles, you certainly need to understand the health of the battery and range and all of that. But at the end of the day, it is a connected solution that is going to help you run your business better. And at the same time, and Lauren, you had mentioned artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence is an underpinning with the ability to digest and to parse out and to be able to predict a future event. And for fleets, of course, as we all know, that's really about preventing downtime and increasing uptime. But what we also hear from our Fleet Advisory Hub members is that drivers, telematics many times will include a camera integration. So it's not just gathering the vehicle data, but you integrate a camera, and then you have some drivers that feel like they're being spied on, and there's the big brother aspect, and there's privacy aspects. So some companies are hesitant to roll in a camera, but at the same time, they could get an insurance discount because now that's, the proof is in the pudding. You have video evidence about in case of an accident or such. Other concerns around connected solutions is, cybersecurity attacks, protecting the privacy of their customers, protecting the privacy of their employees. So again, you have this yin-yang that connected solutions really offer a lot of benefits to the company in so many different ways. But as with, I guess, any new emerging technology, there are drawbacks, there are limitations, and we'll just kind of see right now among Fleet Advisory Hub members, we're seeing adoption of around 34%, being driven by the larger fleets. So fleets that are maybe 100 vehicles up, they're getting on board first. Just the more vehicles that you have, the more headaches that you have, right? So if you can use technology to help you manage that fleet, we're seeing the adoption curve is being led by those larger fleets. And, it's only poised to grow more.
So, our panel is all about empowering change. We've talked about what the challenges were in connecting those dots. And in order to be able to better connect them, we've got to enable some change to happen. But to borrow a video game analogy, before we can kind of activate those power-ups, we have to figure out what needs to change in the first place. From your really unique points of view, what do you believe really needs to change to make better connections from dot to dot? Dania, I'm going to lean on you again to start this one out. What are your thoughts?
Oh gosh, change, right? Nobody really likes it. It's really kind of hard and it's time consuming, but you can't grow unless you're changing. So it's kind of like this double-faced evil thing. But in the face of change and seeing the disruption that our industry is going through, there's sometimes a natural tendency, because we're all humans and humans have natural inherent biases sometimes. And what happens sometimes is that companies think that they can take on something new in an area that is new or they're unfamiliar with. And essentially, they think many times incorrectly that they can apply their current core competency or skills or talent to an area that they're really unfamiliar with. So that, like I said, we're humans and that happens. An example of working through this bias or being successful in recognizing they had a bias is the vehicle OEMs and partnering with tech companies, right? And I suppose if companies had sufficient time, they could keep it in-house. But, the OEMs recognize that they probably can't do it as fast as the tech companies. And think about batteries, the battery manufacturing, the different battery chemistry. When we think about the transition to EV, again, we're seeing OEMs partner with battery manufacturers. Not that they're incapable of doing it, and they are doing it. But again, nobody has the luxury of taking forever because you won't remain competitive. Tesla and a handful of, probably I have a list here, it's more than a handful of OEMs have decided to adopt the Tesla charging standard, right? The North American charging standard. So this is a case where you have to kind of work together and recognize, and it's kind of like, that's the first step. The first step is to acknowledge that you may need help. And once you acknowledge that this disruption, where you want to be competitive, where your business objectives are, really is taking you into an unfamiliar territory, then it's critical to kind of remind yourself, well, gee, do we really have the skills and the talent and the time and the money to work through this transition so we don't lose our leadership position? So change is hard. And I would say the first step is to recognize that you need some help.
I think it also kind of goes back to that previous answer too, where we were talking about the speed of change,
Yes.
and the fact that, change is hard, but some things change very, very quickly, and some do take time and are more difficult, but need to change more quickly. And so those partnerships and relationships are a very valuable part of making that change happen.
Yes, absolutely.
Candy, what about you?
Well, I was going to add in that, we don't know what we don't know, right? So, and I think that just sums that up. In our ever changing market, staying ahead, or in any business, right? Staying ahead of the curve is something that we have to do to remain competitive. It's continuous learning, it's exploring, it is acknowledging the unknowns of the unknown. And in situations like what we are just discussing here, is finding the people that you want to hold hands with, right? We connect the dots to what we already know, and then the vast opportunities yet to uncover. And I think that that's where some of the times that you do hold hands or partner, just the transparency in general, where we're at in our industry, right? Because we just know what we know. We know what silo that we're in. We know from our past experiences all the dots that maybe we have touched, so we can understand a little bit of that from our experience with that, right? But I started, I started in manufacturing. Like, that's what I wanted to be when I grew up, when I was a kid. And I think that probably going back to coming into the commercial space for me was understanding that, like, actually physically a machine producing a product and what it goes into from that perspective, when we were talking about OEMs, right? I mean, look what we've been through the last few years with COVID, right? And shutdowns. And sometimes if there's a shutdown or a slowdown, maybe there's a supplier that's lost. Well, that probably doesn't affect either one of us on this screen now, but it really does in the full circle of things, right? Because it can slow things down. It can have vehicles setting, and to the technology side, right? It may require more computer chips for that entire vehicle to talk because it is different pieces that's together. There's just a lot to unpack here in this space where we're at. And I think that it really begins inside of us as individuals, right? What is your willingness? Where you have to be curious. You have to know what the big scope is. What is your willingness to, to adapt, to want to know more, find out who you can hold hands with, because that's what encourages us to seek new perspectives, collaborations. It's just uncovering, bringing awareness, even if it's nothing that, hey, we're all three kind of in this bucket together. Could be competitors, could not be, but let's partner. Let's uncover these blind spots. Like, I think that we just been through a lot to this point, and with things changing at a rate that it's changing, sometimes do we have room to really get blindsided a lot more, because the customer pays the price, right? When it's slowed down, and it's not just the Amazon delivery van, because I think we all can relate to that, like really relate to that. But it's whether or not your electricity's on, right? It's the major things. It's the infrastructure of who we are. Catherine says it a lot, right? But it's everything that we do. It's the transportation if you're sick, right? It's all those things, that all these dots connected. So I think that we just have to ask ourselves, our teams, our businesses, ask questions, seek out diverse viewpoints, right? Look at all those around us, tap into that wealth of wisdom and expertise that's there, and maybe try to use that to help fill some of the gaps, and be open to new ideas. Because as a parent, I think that you learn that, like, you have to be right? Be willing to seek, but you got to be open to new ideas and how to do things better, because what got us to where we are today might not be what serves us for the future.
Yeah.
I love it. And I think, one of the things that I think we have learned collectively since the pandemic is just how valuable the commercial vehicle business is to everything that is done, from the food on your table to the technology you're using, the vehicles and everything that goes into that, from them being built to sold to delivered. And it all comes down to a really diverse group of people working together to connect those dots and make things continue to move. This panel right here, we've got a journalist and we have somebody in finance and data analytics, and all communicating and talking about a very similar topic from very different angles that need to work together, though, to be able to empower that change to move forward. I absolutely love it. So I think, now that we really better understand what we need to be addressing, I really want to work on giving our audience something actionable to take away. So, in the spirit of really connecting those dots, how do we actually empower change? Candy, let's start with you on this one.
Well, I think it might be just a little bit of repeat of what I just said, right? Because my gut response is, we have the answers today, right? We have the answers that are surrounding each of us, that maybe it's a pain point, or uncovering opportunity, understanding it. I think the answers are around us. The answers to the future technology, the future obstacles. It's the connectivity. It's us seeking that. That's the powerful force that brings solutions. So it goes back to making ourselves available, right? And the ability to build relationships. That's what fuels the creative side of everything. So I think that, we're already doing it now, maybe in our little lane, right? But like you said earlier, it's that power up. It's the level up, right? And that starts, it starts within, you know, and then it's maybe build your teams at the forefront of that, thinking about change, right? So, you know, well, Convoy, right? It was a change to the industry. It was, hey, we have this, going back to the print days, Lauren, you know, you could snap a photo of a truck, right? And typeset some handwritten description saying, hey, this is a Chevrolet 3500 service utility body, whatever, and you could broadcast that out, right? But when digital came along, it was, oh, this is just a 3500 chassis, and that's all the digital data can really tell us, which is, you know, Work Truck Solutions came in and filled that gap because it was that creativity. It was that willingness to want to fix a problem. And it brought that to our industry. And Convoy is powered by Work Truck Solutions. So therefore you have a marketplace, right? That kind of changed up how people could search and find and buy work trucks. You know, you could, hey, I need a box truck. And I just need it to be 16-foot box truck, has to have a ramp on it and a lift. Do you know that it's really not easy to find even in today's world? But that's what Convoy does, because it's the first of its kind to have that structured data searchable where it's click, click, click. Here's your options. But it all started with someone seeking out, right? And building that team and making themselves available and building the right relationships. And it's just all very layered. And with the vehicles and the technology going at the pace that it's going, even at a dealership level, right? Because like I said earlier, that's the front line. A lot of the times those conversations are much different. It's not just a vehicle anymore that you're just moving metal.
Right. And I think, you know, at the beginning, you mentioned, you know, people almost, we've been told for so long, stay in your lane. Do what you do best, stay in your lane. And it seems like getting out of your lane is really what we need to be working on a little bit more. We're asking the questions, finding the people who can answer them, and getting out of our lane and seeing what we might be able to do a little bit differently and try to succeed a little bit more uniquely and creatively than we may have before. I think that's a really, really solid takeaway out of that thought. Thank you. Dania, what about you? What would you add on that one?
So I put some thought to this question, and there are three things that kind of stand out for me, which Candy has touched upon all three of those, and Lauren, you just touched upon one of them. So my number one is be open to learning from others. So we learned in the recent survey, the Telematics Path to Purchase, that the number one trigger for fleets to adopt a telematics solution was recommendation from others. That's peers, that's colleagues, of course, that's a telematics service provider. But I was a little bit surprised about that. The industry talks, right? We have very credible, well-entrenched associations that help with information and education. We talk to each other. We talk to the associations. You have to be learning. You have to be willing to learn from others and to understand how does their experience, whether positive or negative, is going to apply to my business and my fleet and my business objectives. But to Candy's point, if you are just going to be in your own silo, and Lauren, to your point, if you're just going to stay in your lane, well, like, we've never needed a telematics solution before, why do I need it now? That potentially is going to hold you back, and that's going to challenge your competitive position as things are moving so quickly and so rapidly. With new players come in, you know, Catherine talked this morning about, and as I had mentioned, the ecosystem pretty much is the same, but you have new players coming into that ecosystem. You've got new OEMs, you have new software providers, and they may have a new perspective. So you need to be open to learning from others. Number two, and both of you have touched upon it, be open to experimenting with new technology. Right now, AI, generative AI, is all the buzz. I'm not suggesting that anybody goes half-cocked and, goes down the AI path, but there's a lot of media attention. There's been like 36 congressional hearings last year on it. But we recently completed a survey that asked our fleet decision makers what they thought about AI and what they thought about generative AI. And because it's been in the news and a lot of media coverage, but also as telematics adoption continues to increase, you have AI underpinning that solution to a certain extent when it comes to predictive maintenance and being able to be smart and scheduling and routing and dispatch, navigation. So fleets are familiar with artificial intelligence, which has been around for decades, but generative artificial intelligence, which generates new content, is less widespread known, but they are using it. Some of these fleets, all size, small, medium, and large, are starting to dabble in generative artificial intelligence. They're using it for marketing purposes. They're using to target low-hanging fruit and their best candidates. They are using it to generate content for their website. They're using it to create videos, training videos. In theory, you could take all of the connected data from your vehicle. You could take a look at idle data. You could overlay driver behavior on that. You could, in theory, create a training video on driver behavior and idle behavior, and it could all be artificial intelligence generated, including the voice. At Escalent, I'm very happy to say that I feel like we're ahead of this curve because it certainly applies to our industry, market research, consumer insight, certainly data analytics. And we're taking it very seriously as far as, because we are kind of responsible for our customers' data. So we're taking it very, very seriously. But we just took some training and the voiceover was all AI generated. And it did pretty good, you guys. I mean, only a couple times did it mispronounce a word. So my point is that you need to be open to experimenting in reason, but at least be open to it because it could certainly save you money in your training budget, right? If you can generate a video yourself for training purposes, there's certainly potential to do that. And then finally, this might be my favorite, embrace reverse mentoring. So reverse mentoring is when a younger person coaches or mentors an older person. And this has helped me tremendously over the years because as we go through this transition of the older generations, the Gen Xers and the baby boomers starting to leave the workforce, we will bring in those millennials and Gen Z. About 40% of the workforce today is comprised of millennials and Gen Z. They are digital natives. They're not intimidated. Like sometimes I get intimidated. They grew up with this technology and they're willing to help the old folks. So embrace reverse mentoring because not only can it help you individually in your professional career growth, if you're still, 10 or 15 years out, but it also gives, the younger worker a sense of purpose and a huge contribution to the business. So, learn from others, be open to experimenting with new technologies, and be open to collaborate with your younger colleague because they're going to help you out.
I love it. I think that really also connects to and creates those relationships that we have
Yes.
been talking about throughout
Yes.
this entire panel, both directions. And I know that I definitely feel confident in technology, but when it comes to some new platforms, I will admit I was not able to do a TikTok video to save my life. Any other panel or platform I've got, but that one was where I kind of hit my own personal, I'm going to need some help. Nicole, do we have you back?
Lauren, can you hear me?
I can hear you loud and clear.
And can you
Awesome.
see me?
I can, and I'm not hearing anything otherwise from folks. Could we just get you to introduce yourself to the panel just one more time, and then we'll get you into this.
So my name's Nicole with Mitsubishi HC Capital. I'm the Director of Sales for the Southeast region, and I've been in the commercial automotive industry for the majority of my career, and I am still very excited to be here today.
Awesome, awesome. So we haven't gotten too far without you. I do want to make sure that we get a little bit of some insight from you. So while I've got you, we're really again looking at connecting those dots. And so we're trying to figure out what some of the insights and experiences you had in really understanding and connecting those dots in your professional journey.
Whew. So I had no idea how vast and complex this industry as a whole was when I first entered it. I literally started out at the ground level with semi-truck tires, literally at the ground. From there, I went on to transportation and freight brokerage, aftermarket parts, trailers, semi-trucks, OTR, OEM sales, upfit, and now commercial finance. It's been a lot to wrap my head around, and I still feel like I'm learning something new every day. But honestly, the biggest takeaway I have is that as I move from one dot to the next, it's that they're all connected in one way or another. Like you need one for the other, and it's really cool to see how we all, in every single industry, you need one for the other to make it work. So it's been really a fun learning experience.
You really do. And I think, when we look at this on once we've connected the dots, we really are looking to change to make better connections from dot to dot.
Mhm.
What needs to change to kind of make that better in your world?
Well, I think it's so easy to take the path of least resistance due to the fast-paced environment that we all we're challenged with it every single day. I think that anybody that we work with that's listening, that's participating on this call today, our inboxes are flooded with spams and emails and marketing blasts. And most of those don't get read, or they're received as a nuisance rather than a well-intended outreach, right?
Right.
And I think that the way we communicate day to day could really improve connections. I think that picking up the phone, it's a lost art form these days. And that interpersonal connection is really lost sometimes in the digital world. I really do.
One of the things that we were getting onto was really kind of talking about making actionable change and what we can do to really empower change. And, I know one way we can change is by really staying curious, not stopping, asking questions, and really kind of questioning what's always been done that way. What are some of the ways that you really feel that we can kind of take steps to empower change?
I think just asking questions, being curious, seeking knowledge, learning from your peers, being connected. I think that these are things that it's accessible, it's easy, but you have to have that drive, and you have to have that curiosity. You can't be complacent. And I think that complacency is not going to be a catalyst for empowerment.
echoes everything that we've been really saying, talking about over the last few minutes, and I think really connecting. This is a prime example, the CVB Summit, of people connecting from all over the country and from all around different vocations, from, again, media to finance to data, to talk about the challenges. And while I think we can all really make change happen individually, we're always so much louder and stronger as a group when we work together to make these change happen. So thank you for the insight. I do want to take a little bit of time while we have it to get a little more personal. So I'm going to bring this back to our full panel. Our key relationships and connections really do influence our personal paths. We're going to go into and talk about what our most important connection has been, that's been really instrumental to success in the vehicle space for you. Candy, let's throw this one your way.
It'd be tough to put it down to one, right? But I'm going to go with I had two industry mentors, right? So one earlier on my career path and one later in my professional path. But just their combined years of experience and expertise served as a source of invaluable insights that no doubt shaped my career trajectory, decision-making process. The knowledge transfer alone has just helped me understand, like I said earlier, this navigating into new areas. So I hear from them little emails from along the way, and they still send them to me, right? And it's just things to keep me focused on my why, because my why I do what I do is not the same as it was when I was 25. It's not the same as it was a couple of years ago. And I think as we empower change as an industry, we have to think about that why. It goes back into an internal thing, right? And with these mentors that I'm speaking about, particularly, it was always a nice reminder to be coachable, right? And I think we've already touched on that today. Obviously, they were very patient with me. But a mutual understanding of respect, from the ones that did this before me, but also that what was the word? The reverse. Yes, that. So it's that mutual street that makes it wholehearted, right? Mentors for me just played a crucial role in facilitating connections in the commercial industry, those networking opportunities by leveraging their networks, right? And that allowed me to create my own ecosystem for support. The mentors that I'm speaking of also helped me navigate my career transitions, right? They did that with confidence and clarity, like a true mentor does. And a lot of the times my response, and still is, just wax on, wax off, right? Because I feel like Danielson and Karate Kid, a lot of the times, because you're working on things and you're not really sure why or what's the long game. And I do ask that a lot, even like now, right? I ask that a lot because I feel like if you understand the long game, then you understand how you can fit into that to help those around you. And I just think that gives, for me, having those key players in my journey just gave me vision. It instilled that confidence, that resilience, that positive mindset that's always going to be essential for overcoming challenges that we have came through, the ones that we're going to face, and to keep me staying focused on my goals and maintaining a sense of purpose for the work I do. And reminder to pass the baton, right? Mm-hmm. Someone pulled me through the ranks, And I think that we all should try to do that again, it could be someone internally, right? Like, what if it's someone that just wants to know more about the department that you work in? We did a lot of this in manufacturing, which was cross-training, right? Because the more people that was cross-trained or that could understand other departments, it made it more efficient. You were more efficient if you had someone call in sick, because a machine doesn't stop, right?
Right.
It has to keep running. It just, and not only did he make you more efficient and more cost effective, but it also gave career paths for people that maybe would want to cross over departments. So I see that, and being inside the dealership, you see that too. And I'm sure Nicole can speak to it, right? From the finance perspective, because you have, they all kind of work in their own little departments, and just the understanding that and passing the baton and saying, hey, this could help you, right? Or this is why we do this. Because sometimes we just don't know the why. And I'm like, well, dang, if I knew that makes sense, right? If we don't pass the baton, then I think that we're going to struggle a little bit more connecting the dots, and we'll just find much more resistance.
I think, your focus on your why was such a powerful comment. I mean, why is just such a powerful tool in a toolbox for anything that we do, for moving forward, for change, for questioning what we've always done, and for focusing on why we're doing it in the first place. That focus on your why. I really love that. Dania, what about you? What's the most important connection that's really been instrumental to your success so far?
So as Candy, it's tough to zero in on a single entity. As we've been talking, how big the ecosystem is, and the changes and the interconnectivity. But Escalent, me personally, we've been very fortunate to work very closely with our OEM clients, and having our OEM clients treat us as a true partner versus a vendor or a supplier, and being able to have a sneak peek into their strategy and their vision lends a deeper understanding and knowledge of the industry as a whole. So I would certainly say, some of our OEM clients, we work very closely with NADA, to the National Association of Dealers, right? And we conducted their dealer attitude survey. So they have been instrumental in the dealer space and helping us understand the challenges that dealers face. Dealers are facing a challenge with the transition to electrification. So NADA has been instrumental in helping us understand kind of that dealer ecosystem. And Candy talked about, passing the baton, and, eventually you start your career as a young person, and then, you're the older person. And I remember saying something to a colleague, and of course, colleagues have been instrumental. This was just a couple years ago. Well, I used to go to so-and-so for information and understanding and, whatever. And it's just like, one day I'm that person. So it's important to pass that baton. And then, finally, the people that we talk to, right? Our consumers that we engage with via our research initiatives, our Fleet Advisory Hub members, which we're engaging with frequently. That is real-time, real-world experience that allows us to get at the why. So Lauren, you're so right about the why. We conduct, tens of thousands of surveys, but in absence of the contextual understanding of why people are making the decisions that they are, or why they're not behaving in a certain way that we think they should, or our OEM client thinks they should, or why a dealer isn't doing what an OEM thinks they should be doing, that ability to engage with them qualitatively through building that relationship provides that contextual understanding. So I know that was kind of a long answer to probably a simple question, but it's just not a simple, it's not a simple industry.
Isn't, and I think that answer really illustrated that. Nicole, what about you when it comes to a relationship or more that's been really key and instrumental in your success?
I think like everybody else's responses, it's definitely more than one. I've had the benefit of having multiple mentors contribute to success in my career path, which I think is fantastic. It's not just one specific connection, but multiple connections, and multiple people believing in me and having faith in me and giving me the guidance and mentorship and, giving me that positive support system that I needed. And it's now this season of my career, it's both an honor and a pleasure to also be that. They mentioned passing the baton, that I get to be that for other people too now. Which it's pretty neat because I wouldn't have made it this far if people didn't believe in me. And it's truly a pleasure to be able to extend that grace and be a support system and a champion and a source of encouragement for other people entering this industry. Because when they say it takes a village, because it's not an easy course to navigate. There are days that are so hard and so challenging and so frustrating. And you need somebody to tell you it's okay. It's going to be okay. Not every day is going to be easy, So, it's nice to have a source of encouragement and somebody to pick you up when you feel like you've fallen down.
I love it. And yeah, I can't believe our time's already starting to come to a close. In the last few minutes, I do have one more question I would love to get to everybody. I'm going to ask to keep these responses a little shorter so that we can stick to the time that we've been given. But collaboration sparks creativity and progress. I think that's kind of a big end result of what I've been hearing here. What's an example of a successful collaboration or partnership that you've been involved with that's really kind of contributed to connecting these dots more effectively and helping empower that change that you really needed to see? Dania, what's a quick example that you might have?
So certainly our partnership with Work Truck Solutions, when you talk about vehicles in inventory and the depth and breadth that they have, I certainly have a working knowledge of the commercial vehicle industry, but admittedly, I had no idea how many upfits and how many add-ons and the use cases. So certainly our relationship with Work Truck Solutions. And then over the years, we've had very good partnerships with research tech companies that have allowed us to be successful in our research community methodology. So Work Truck Solutions and some of our research tech partners have been instrumental, definitely.
Nicole, what about you?
Really excited about this one. I was working with a dealership on an asset we were financing for him. We were talking about the loan and the terms, and he was just talking to me, and he was telling me about the upfitter that he was normally working with, and the upfitter wasn't able to meet his need by date that his customer had. And I asked if he heard of this other upfitter, and he said, well, yeah, I've seen him at NTEA, but I don't have a contact there. And I'm like, well, I do, because I used to work with him when I was at GM. And he was like, you do? And I said, yeah, let me connect you guys. Boom, had a relationship. It's been fantastic. They've been working together ever since. I call that a win.
Yep, you never know who somebody knows that you might need, just that quick call.
Exactly.
Candy, what about for you?
Going to be probably with recent work with New Propel, Convoy's learning resource that's dedicated to advanced fuel, and just knowing how new all of that is for me, right? And that leaning on the subject matter experts in that field, because those things didn't pop up overnight, right? These people have dedicated their life to the advancement of this. So some of those partnerships and the Fleet Advisory Hub. And I think just to sum it up to everything that we've talked about here, Lauren, is the community, right? The building of the community, the importance of that, and embracing that, leveraging each other's strengths, right? So I think that we're able to effectively connect the dots better.
Thank you, ladies. So it's through collaboration, connections like this, that we're driving that positive change. As I close things out, I really can't miss noting that this is the third time I've had the honor to moderate a powerhouse all-female panel at the Commercial Vehicle Business Summit. I have to believe that it's through the hard work of publications like Work Truck that Bobit does and Work Truck Solutions Today that our industry has been really empowered to embrace change. And I think we can see it right here, right now. So thank you to everybody for joining us, and stay tuned for that next session.